Good morning, dear students. Welcome to today's science class. So, we are in chapter 9, that is the living organisms, characteristics, and its habitats. So, today we are basically going to discuss about the adaptations of the amphibians such as frogs. So, at the end of today's class, you will be able to describe the adaptations of the amphibians. So, before we start discussing about the amphibians and the adaptations in frogs, let us have a quick recap of things which we have covered in our last class. So in the last class we discussed about the adaptations in aquatic plants found in fresh water such as ponds, lakes and rivers. So how are these plants adapted to survive in ponds, lakes or rivers? We'll study. We have already studied, so let us just revise few things once again. Okay, so first of all, the plants are categorized into three types. Actually, the aquatic plants are categorized into three types. So number one, plants that float on the surface of water. So there are certain plants that float on the surface of water. They have special adaptations, like they have hollow stems which make their stems light and so that they can float in the water. They have broad leaves that helps them to float on the water. So few of the examples of such plants are water lettuce and water hyacinth. So these two plants are the examples of plants that can float on the surface of water. Then there are some aquatic plants which are partly submerged in water. So the roots of partly submerged plants are fixed in the soil. So actually the roots are quite long and they are fixed to the soil. So they are partly submerged plants. So their roots are fixed at the bottom of pond, lake or river. The stems of such plants grow up to a surface of water while the leaves and flowers float on the surface of water. So the stems, they are quite long, so they extend up to the surface of the water while the leaves and flowers float on the surface of water. So we can cite examples such as lotus. Lotus is one of such plants which whose roots are actually fixed, but they generally remain on the surface of the water. Then the third category of aquatic plants are plants that are completely submerged in water. So the roots of submerged plants are also fixed in soil, just like the plants which are partly submerged in water. So they are similar to those plants and their roots are fixed to the soil below water at the bottom of pond, lake or river. All the parts of such plants including stem, branches and leaves grow under the water. So now unlike the other two types of plants, here the entire plant remains inside the water. So they so parts such as stem, branches and leaves also they remain under the water. And some examples of plants that are totally submerged in water are Hydrilla and Vallisneria. So these are the two types of plants which are found underwater. So they are underwater plants. Now let us discuss about the adaptations of amphibians, and specifically we will discuss about adaptations in frog. Okay, so animals adapted to live in water and on land. So there are certain animals who can survive both on water and land. So frog is one of such animals. So the animals like frog have ponds as their habitat. So they mainly they are mainly found in the wetlands and the areas such as ponds and nearby areas. So frogs are found in sedate, damp conditions near ponds. Frogs can live inside water as well as on land and near the pond, and therefore they are known as what? Amphibians. Now frogs spend most of their time on the land but come back to water to lay their eggs. Now we know that they can survive on both land and water. So they spend most of their time on the land, but when they are supposed to lay eggs, that time they come to water. Why? Because the eggs, when they are in cluster, they change to the stage where they do not have limbs. So from egg, when the eggs hatch out, the babies, they don't have any limbs to walk on the land. They have tail just like fish, they look like fish. So they lay eggs in the water so that their babies can grow up to a stage where they grow their limbs. So once they start growing their limbs, they can come to the land, but for the initial stage of life they remain in water. So frogs are adapted to live live in water as well as on the land for the following ways. In the following ways. So now let us study more about the adaptations of frog. So adaptations in frogs. Frogs have webbed back feet which help them to swim in water. So even the adult frogs, is not that once they grow limb they don't go to water. So after the limbs are developed in the adult frogs, they also have some adaptations in their limbs, such as they have webbed back feet which help them to swim in water. Now webbed feet are formed from the skin between toes and work like paddles for swimming. So they are the webbed feet is formed between the toes, the skin between the toes, and they work like what, paddles for swimming. So they use them for paddling through the water. So this adaptation helps the frog to live life in water. Frogs have strong back legs for hopping, that is jumping and catching their prey. So when they are on lands, they hop around and they can easily hop and catch their prey. So this adaptation helps the frogs to live on land. So as they mainly live on water, so they used to catch their prey in water only, but at times they also move to the water surface. And when they are supposed to lay eggs, they definitely go to water and they lay their eggs in the water, because the initial stage, in the initial phase of their life cycle, they do not have any limbs. They swim in the water with the help of their tail, just like fish, and it appears also like fish. So sometimes fishermen, they get confused between these tadpoles and the fish. So this is how frogs are adapted to live both on land and water. Now let us see the questions for the day. So these are the two questions for the day. First question is, how are frogs adapted to survive in both land and water? And question number 2, why the frogs lay their eggs in water? So please try to answer this question as your home assignment, and you can submit this in your Google Classroom. So that's all for today's class, my dear students. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.